Okay, so in this video I'm basically going to show you how to do the Barrels of Fun quest. This is a Kirin Tor world quest. In case you don't know what it is, basically you go to the guy that's running it, and you can see that at the moment there are 3 barrels. Basically you click this action button here, which is this start around, and what happens is one of the 3 barrels will flash. They all move around, swap places, and it's trying to confuse you to take your eye off it. And then they all stop, and basically you're then asked to right click and select one of the barrels, and you're supposed to select the one that flashed at the beginning. If you get that right, another barrel is added, so from 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, and you go through that. You have to do it you have to complete it in successive rounds. So if you get it right the first time, you go up to 4 barrels. If you get it right the second time, you would go up to 5 barrels. If you get it wrong that time, you go back down to 4, and if you get it wrong that time, obviously back down to 3, and so on. So your minimum is always going to be 3 barrels, and then I think it's when you get 6 barrels and you complete that one, you've completed the daily. So it can get quite confusing sometimes. They go short distances, long distances, they all cross through each other, you know, so sometimes it can be a bit difficult. As a general rule of thumb, if you keep your eye on it carefully, you should be able to manage it, but sometimes you don't, and I know a lot of people get fed up with it. So there used to be well, there is a macro that you can use, and what this macro does is it's a mouse over macro. So when you mouse over and then hit a keybind button to apply the macro or to run the macro, it marks the barrel with a raid icon. Now there are a lot of videos up on YouTube on how to do this, but some of them are old, and since they've been made, this macro sort of cheat, I don't know how you want to call it, this is it's been nerfed. And what happened was you were able to click the start the round button and then very quickly mouse over the one that flashed, press your keybind button and mark that barrel. You would watch them all swap about, select that one, brilliant. Press the start around button again, you'd see one of them flash, mouse over it, click, apply the same raid icon to it, and they'd all move around, and so on and so on and so on. Well, now you're not able to mark them until after they've done all of their moving. So when you click the start around, one of them will flash, but you can't mark it, so you have to keep your eyes on it, and so on and so on. So this video is very quickly just to show you how to use pretty much the same macro, but now you just use it in a slightly different order, in a slightly different way, and it makes life very, very simple. So first of all, the macro. So there's the macro window. This is my macro, my Barrels of Fun macro, and effectively this is all it is: /run space SetRaidTarget open bracket double quote mouse over double quote comma the value of the number can any number between 1 and 8 inclusive, so 1 to 8, and then close bracket. Once you've created that macro and you save it, just get your macro icon and place it on one of your action bars and assign a keybind button to it. Okay, now I'm going to leave this create macro window open because we will need to modify the macro slightly, save it, and then apply it again. So down here on my action bars, number 1 is my Barrels of Fun. Now for the very first go you will have to actually do it properly. So when you start the Barrels of Fun, one of them will flash, keep your eyes on it, and then don't do anything once that's finished. If you know which one it is, don't do anything. Okay, so we start it, I see it's that barrel, so we try and follow that barrel. Okay, right, so this barrel. Okay, now you can see the icon has changed now, so we can interface with it, but now I'm going to use my mouse over macro. So the cursor is over the barrel, I press keybind number 1, and now it marks it there, you can see, with the skull. So now I go to my macro and I change that value from so I change that value from 8 to 7, and then I save it. I then go to a different barrel and press 1, my keybind button, and it now marks it with a different raid icon, and so on and so on. So I just do that, save it, and then mark the next one. Okay, so now I've got to select one of them. I think it was the skull, so I right click. Okay, we'll right. So now you can see 3 of them are marked and 1 of them isn't. So what you do this time is start the round and see which one flashes. And it doesn't matter now because they're all individual. Even the one that isn't marked is different than the others, if you know what I mean. So we start it, there, the skull again. So now we can do whatever we want. We don't even have to watch them because we know it's the skull. So once it's finished, before I select anything, I'm going to change this to number 5, save it, and then I will mark the other empty barrel, and then I'll go to the skull and I'll select it. See, now we're up to 5 barrels. Again, we start it. Okay, it's the cross or the X, however you want to describe it. Okay, so we know it's the X. So at this point I'll just change my macro again to the last value, save it, mouse over, press my keybind, and then select the X. So now we've got the last one, we're up to 6 barrels, so we don't need to mark anything anymore. So I've closed my macro window, do that, right, and it's the moon. Okay, so you just let them do their thing, and select the moon, and there we go, quest completed.